Scotty Alexander, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. How you doing, Ken Tucker?
I am good. I am good. Not living the life you're living, but I'm trying.
Yeah. It's really just a fake background as far as you know.
Exactly. Yeah, mine too.
Yeah.
Redskins, there's no such thing as a Redskin anymore.
No, there aren't. They're only Commandos.
There you go. There you go. So let's talk.
Nice.
So first time we talked about leadership lenses and the like. Yeah, how do you want to take this one and run with it?
Well, I kind of wanted to talk to you a little bit about the leadership lens idea was something that you kind of dropped on me a while back, and I would like to hear about the origin of where that thought process came from.
All right, cool. So I think I was always brought up and people always talked a lot about what hat are you wearing, that kind of thing. And
Right.
I see the world through glasses, maybe, those rose colored glasses, but I see the world through different lenses. So in my lifetime, I've been a coach. I coached all my daughters, actually, coached your daughter, as you obviously know. Been a coach, I've been a peer as an employee. I've been a manager. I've been a boss. I've been a CEO now, a father, a husband, all those things. And everyone has a different lens. And what I've learned over time is when I was younger, I created problems, whether it was at home or not. If I came home to my wife, who was home watching my three daughters, and I came home and I'm still wearing that CEO lens, but in reality, I'm walking into somebody who has that wife lens on. You have to be aware and you have to be cognizant to what's going on. And
then you have to be a husband and a dad.
Yeah, dad, and not the boss of all, right? So and I found that to be difficult. I've been in business 27 years and I found that difficult early on. How do you turn that off? And that is kind of where it's all come. When I was coaching, and you got to put that coach lens on, when I was coaching my daughters, I wasn't their dad, I was their coach. Right. Different lens there too. So that's kind of where it all kind of started and came from in terms of a thought process. I think that I have learned in all the years as I've become more successful, I believe that the success, there you go, little sex got, slip there. As I became more successful, the sex got better.
Maybe.
But but as I've become more successful, it has always kind of tied to my skill set of leadership and how I see things and being able to turn things on and turn things off.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things I love about you is that, you're not the same person I met. God, how long ago was it now?
Probably 20 years ago now, right?
Yeah. And
back at you. You right back at you.
Sure, right. Well, that's it. It's the constant pursuit of perfection that's ultimately futile. That's the martial arts side of it. But it still is that always on the quest to try to be better today than you were yesterday, and the same tomorrow and the same tomorrow. And it's a continual process. So, your understanding of leadership now, and even that lens that you look at your business through, is very different, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And it's so as you're doing that and you're growing, I think I found my success has followed my goals. When I'm goal driven or goal oriented, I find myself, I typically succeed. I end up attaining that goal, whatever that goal might be. Right. And it could be family, it could be something, it could be my business, whatever it might be. And I kind of learned as I was setting goals for myself and my family, as I was attaining them, I had to continually strive to grow and be different and be better and be learning, because as you start moving that bar and you're trying to hit a higher goal or a higher place, if you're not paying attention, if you're not understanding where your weaknesses are and you're trying to improve your weaknesses, it's going to be more difficult to attain. I think, so hopefully over the years you've seen, I think one of the benefits of you and I getting together and talking so much over the years is we're fine telling each other about their weaknesses and holding them accountable to it until we get better, whether it's in sports or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think, taking it in a little different place, I think that I think you hit your stride setting those goals and growing your business on the spreadsheet side and the number side.
Yeah.
And actually, I mean, I remember some of our first conversations were about, you know, you didn't understand why people, when you showed them a path to make more money by working a few extra hours, you didn't understand why they didn't take it. And I remember us talking about, well, what's your number? And if I told you had to work some extra hours, you work on Saturdays through the summer, you could make, 5% extra. Well, that matters when you're making 80,000, maybe not when you're making 500,000. Right. And you want some of your time back, and everybody has that different, and what that led to, and I think where we are now, I mean, in the last time that you and I talked about it, you got to develop your people and let the people make those business decisions. And that's what jettisons you from, wherever you've grown the company to that next level, is you've got to almost scale the people and the decisions that they make, right? How do they make their judgment calls? Because you can't talk to every customer that you have. You can't supervise every tech that you have. And so you've got to scale that outward in the leadership side. And the only way you can do that is help them see the world through a leadership lens.
Right. And I think that if I put my coaching lens on while I was at work, and when I should have had a leadership lens on, you kind of think they're the same, but they're not, right? When you're a coach, all 10 girls on that basketball team or 12 girls on the basketball team, you start the year off with a common goal. And now I can give them little things to help them go attain that goal. The problem in business is with my employees don't all have the same goal that I have. Right. But so the mistake I made, when I wasn't as good of a leader, when I was more of a numbers guy and I knew what would work, and you have that conversation, it's like, somebody wants to make $100,000. Well, that's easy. Let's just do A, B, C, D, and E. Well, the reality is the $100,000 wasn't ever their goal. That was my goal for them.
Yes.
So now I'm taking them down a path that I wanted for them and they never wanted. And of course you're going to end up, one of us is failing. And the reality was it was me, because I had good people that maybe aren't here any longer because I was trying to do something that they weren't interested in.
Right. And I mean, that's where it starts and ends, right? Is that if you are the leader, it starts and ends with you. It Absolutely. Is always all about you.
Absolutely.
If the wrong person has been brought into your business, that is on you. If the person's the right person, but they're in the wrong seat, it's the leader that has to take the responsibility for that, and then ultimately figure out how we're going to fix it. But that's that lens, right? It's not personal. It's just the way you look at the world.
Yep. And most people, and like your experiences, most people, you think it's like, okay, they've been here this certain amount of time or whatever it might be, so they're the next man up, because a lot of people do that. Well, that doesn't work in business. And I mean, your goals and my goals, we took two distinctly different paths to get where we are, and yet we're kind of in that same place. But we went two different. We got here two different ways, and both are okay.
Yeah. Well, that's the question, right? So is there a formula for leadership, or is it you got to find your path and I got to find my path? I mean, pick any two leaders or however many leaders in history and look at them. It's not that they follow the same formula.
I think there's different formulas for success, but then how do you? But now we also have to, if when we first started out, when I first met you, your definition of success was different from mine.
Sure.
And I'm not saying that they're necessarily the same today, but success is so arbitrary, right? What is, successful to one person might have to do with what they're doing with their family, and for somebody else, I have to have $1 million in the bank. It's everybody defines it their own way.
Well, and in business, success could be, if you define success as building a $10 million company, I think you end up building a $10 million company, and then you have a hard time growing it from 10 to 20.
Correct. Right.
if you define success as I'm going to surround myself with good people, I'm going to drive them to the pinnacle of their performance and continue to tweak that as they get, basically make them better human beings. And you put the right people there, you grow to 10 million as a result of your defining success as building the people. And it's a whole lot easier to scale that at that point, to go from 10 to 20, because it's not on the, how hard can we push to do a certain number of A, B, and C in order to grow to $10 million.
Right.
That becomes very limiting in a funny sort of a way.
Yeah. I mean,
Doesn't
we've
it?
all, yeah, absolutely. And I think that, so that kind of, you can talk about leadership two ways. There's positive reinforcement, there's positive leadership, there's helping people be, give them some wisdom to maybe be better people. And then there's
Right.
also that negative aspect to leadership, but it's not, obviously you don't necessarily call negative things leadership, but we've all had bad bosses, bad coaches, bad whatever. I think that the area where the growth for me really happened was, a lot of it came from you prodding me on my weaknesses for so long that
I do that, Ken.
a little
I don't
bit,
do that,
a little
do
bit,
I?
yeah, which it's a great thing, but I'm an individual that I could take constructive criticism, right? So, and
Sure.
even when you were prodding, it wasn't like anybody was doing anything wrong, or I wasn't doing anything wrong, and you weren't telling me I was doing anything wrong. I was
Nope.
just looking through the wrong lens.
Lens.
Sure. I thought leadership was, I'm going to take this tech who was working for me for 8 years, and he's the next man up, and I'm going to make him my service manager. Well, he had
Right.
no interest in my company being he didn't want to be a manager of a $10 million organization. He wanted to be a manager of a $2 million organization. He could go home at 3 o'clock, which is okay.
Right, exactly.
That was his goal, which is okay.
Yeah.
But I enabled that because I didn't put the people around me that were oriented to where we were trying to go. And I didn't know that they weren't, because I didn't have that conversation with them before I promoted.
Right. I was going to say, in an overly simplistic explanation is, you never asked him what he wanted to do.
Absolutely.
You just assumed, right? So
who wouldn't want to be the manager of a $10 million organization making 150 grand a year and bonuses and whatever? Who wouldn't want that?
yeah,
Well, a lot of people.
yeah,
Right.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I mean, being completely honest, I'm way more defensive of my time than I am driven by how much money I can make.
Right.
At this stage of my life.
Right.
Right. I mean, and we've even had that conversation, right? As you grow, sure, when you're 35 years old and you want to work all day and pull an extra shift because I can put a 20% increase in my pay. Sure, I get all that.
Mm-hmm.
When you get a little older, you're like, what, I want my weekends off.
Right.
I want to do this video call from the deck of a boat. Why not?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
When are you going to do it? Time is not such an endless resource as you get older, right?
And yet some of us, like myself, I struggle with that, because when I create more time for myself, not that I don't know what to do with that time, but it's my motivations are different than others.
Sure. Well, you have a little teeny grandkid that you don't mind killing time with, right?
Oh, that's the one time, missing the golf tournament this last week with you and all of our friends or whatever. But I had she stayed over at the house for 3 days, so I would have to argue that I had a pretty good week myself.
Absolutely. Why wouldn't you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just different. And yeah, so if somebody said to you, well, Ken, I need you to come into work on Saturday, younger Ken would be ready to go.
Yep.
Ken of today's age, I'm sorry, I got my granddaughter here, can't do it.
The crazy thing is I still would do it because of where I'm trying to take the company. So I still would be that one. I would drive Karen crazy because I'd be that one. It's like, hey, I gotta go into work today. and God bless her, she would tell me that if that's what you need to do, go do it.
Right, absolutely. Well, but I think that's how long have you been married?
32 years. I guess that would be a success as well, I guess.
Yeah. Well, sure it is. But, that's if you've made it that long, you've learned how to turn it into a two-way street. So
I learned how to flip that lens.
yeah.
I wear a different lens today than I did when I met her.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You
That's so
actually
funny.
kind of, you were starting to a little bit ago, and I don't know why it just reminded me, but you were talking about, managers or owners or success, and maybe the success is I wanted to build a company to 10 million. And then, now you have to create something because who knows where it goes from there. That is that side where, I was reading, it's kind of in leadership, there's, that's the law of the lid, right? Meaning,
Sure.
so I might have been great at, starting a company out of my garage and building it to 10 million. And I might not be the right guy to take it to 15, 20, 25, or 30 million. Maybe my lid was 10. You have to, within leadership, you have to understand that law, because everybody has a lid. You need to know where your lid is. And some of that lid is just about vision and where can you see to take, you know what I mean? So, do you want to speak to that at all?
Sure. I mean, even when you think about what we were just kind of kidding about, but it's true. Your risk tolerance pattern at 35 is very different than it is now.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. You're willing to risk it all at 35 because you knew in your heart that you could grow another business. If the worst case scenario happened and it all went to the crapper, fine, I'll start over. Yeah. I can always get another job. Right. But now you're like, yeah, kind of got to protect a little bit.
Yeah.
And you and I both know as soon as you go into protection mode, the downside chances are reduced, but so are the upside chances.
Yes.
Just like, investing and everything else is the same way. And so I would offer to you that some of leadership is knowing when to step out of the way. And it's funny. So I do many times the people in leadership positions aren't the leaders in companies, especially small and medium-sized companies. There's that one or two people in your company that if they have your ear and everybody comes to them and then they come to you and go, hey, so a couple of the people were talking. Is that person a leader? They have an impact on the direction you're taking the company, but they're not sitting in the CEO seat or the COO seat. Right?
Yeah.
So intentionally for you as the founder, owner, dad, to step aside and say to, the next generation, I would offer it's kind of similar to when you were coaching those kids in basketball and I saw you do it with my kid, right? You saw that she needed to be more confident about her skills. And so you put her in the game at a time when, it was going to be sink or swim.
Yeah.
That the best way to win the game? Maybe not, but it was the best way to develop that player.
Yeah, absolutely. And
so this is the business side of that, right? So to say to your next in line, you know what? I'm going to step back and I'm going to let you, obviously you've groomed that person and you've given them the tools that they need, but maybe they need to go into the game with the game on the line and make a few mistakes here and there and work through it for themselves.
Yeah, I can remember.
Takes guts.
Yeah, I can remember having her playing point guard. And she's kind of at one point she was flustered and she wanted to come out. She asked me to come out.
Mm-hmm.
I think I brought her out.
You would not let her.
Well, I think I put somebody else in for him, but I told that player, I was like, you're only going in for 10 seconds. I just need to talk to Sydney for 10 seconds. And then on this next go around, then you're back in and you're going to play or whatever. And Sydney thought she was coming off and I stopped her and I was like, oh no, you're going right back in. And she's like, no, I can't do it or whatever. And I was like, I don't care about the outcomes. All I care about is your effort. So you're now at a place where you need to get back in that game and you need to just go play and not worry about mistakes or anything else. And you have to know that I trust you. Go play.
Right. And so what if you step down from that CEO lens and stepped into that coach lens and let somebody else step in there? And now you have a lot of power as the coach.
Yeah.
To impact their ability to grow from 10 to 20 to 30 to 50 million.
Right. Absolutely.
Right?
And I think you can do that. That's where
That's still leadership.
yeah, yes, but that's the leadership that kind of came natural to me. And
Right.
then that happens, like using that as an analogy, that happens early in the year. And the reason that was so important early in the year was I didn't need to win that game. I needed to win the game a month later.
At the end.
And now you have a whole different team. And if you remember that group of girls from when we started to where we ended, we were good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but it was, but you had to
yeah.
do those things. And I think you do the same thing in business. And that's where you helped transform me from that kind of natural skill set that I had to now be able to understand that I have that same effect at work.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's more important than your ability to build a spreadsheet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really?
Because at work, when you're in charge or you're the leader or you're the owner, there are other things that get in the way, right? I might make a bad decision because I'm wearing the CFO lens or whatever, and you're making, so I should have been the CEO, but I was actually acting as the CFO. It doesn't work.
And then you get into that protection mode with the money.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
That's fascinating. So tell me more about this lid thing. So you read it in what book is it?
So there's a book, The 21 Laws of Leadership. So it's just something that I started, and it was actually an interesting story because some of these, when you're reading about things, I equate things back to myself when I'm reading about just about anything. I try to put it back into my own situation. And it was, one of the examples they gave was McDonald's. So there were two McDonald brothers. They failed in a previous business. They opened up a burger joint. And they just wanted to create processes. And it was back where, I guess they were the first ones to build the assembly line of making burgers. And they created these great processes. They built a successful store, and they kind of decided, let's franchise. And they tried to franchise and just kind of show everybody else the process, but they really weren't visionary. They were really would tell them the process and go on their own. Well, all those other stores were failing, so they didn't really understand why. And then they bring in, I guess it was Ray Kroc. They bring him on, and at the end of the day, these two McDonald brothers were holding everything back. They had a lid. And Ray Kroc also has a lid, but he had a different lid. So these guys took it where they could take it. And then, if it wasn't for Ray Kroc, there would not be, 40
the brand,
the thousands and thousands of McDonald's. But that's an example. And then I equate that back to myself. I don't think I've reached my lid yet, other than I'm getting old, right? So I'm getting older. So I might be reaching my lid by age, but I have, I have my daughter here. I have others here that aren't here because they're related to me. They're here because they're really good at what they do. And I'm seeing in some of my employees, I probably have 3 employees right now that I'm actually seeing that have a higher lid than I have. And that's exciting.
Oh yeah. Because once you unleash them, you don't know where they're going to take it when they start making judgment calls and taking risks, and not all of them are going to work out, but some of them are. And same thing, same kind of risk you took, growing it from, your garage to where you are today.
Yeah, I can remember with Mike, he, brother and business partner for those that are watching, but I remember we were doing, 6,000 or 7,000 a month. And I remember, we were working hard to do 6,000 or 7,000. It's all in kind of service work. There was just a couple of us. And I remember pulling him aside one day, and it's like, how the hell are we ever going to get to, 20 grand a month? And he's like, oh, we're just going to treat people well. It'll just happen. Well, I mean, to me, business doesn't just happen. It's like, oh, it'll just happen, and I was like, well, that's not the way it works in my brain, but it sort of is how it worked. And you just kind of prod along, well, then all of a sudden you're doing a couple of million a year. And now I'm at a place where it's like, how do we do $1 million a month? So you go from how the hell are we ever going to do 20 grand a month to now I'm like, how are we going to, or not how, let's do $1 million a month. And my goal this summer is I expect to have a month where we exceed 2 million in 1 month. But so I think I've been able to grow as we've gone personally, which has allowed me to, increase. I think I've always had a high lid. I just didn't never, it took friends like you to kind of pull it out of me.
I think you have a natural, given your background, you have a natural tendency to be able to create systems. And so where your brother said, we're going to treat people nice and it'll just happen, optimistic, maybe not realistic. But don't discount the fact that your natural orientation was to pull out the spreadsheet, figure it out, and go, well, if we do this and we have this many trucks and we have these people and we answer the phone this way and we schedule it this way, we can create efficiencies and then scale it.
Right.
So, in many ways, that was the easy part for you. The transition that you're in the middle of now, or, kind of embracing now, is, okay, great. I've got all these great systems. And we know this right now, right? I mean, everybody's having trouble. What's the biggest problem every business owner has right now? Employees, hiring good people.
Finding good people, yeah.
And if you have spent the last 10 years just building people, they don't leave, right? Because there are people out there who don't want to own companies. There's nothing wrong with that. And they don't mind working hard as long as they're treated fairly and compensated well and given control over their own destiny. That's the same thing. That's a universal human experience.
Right.
And I mean, I know a couple of companies who are limited by their inability to get employees. They've got the system, but they can't get the employees. And I mean, from soup to nuts, from the entry level employee all the way up to senior leadership, because you can't just bring senior leadership into your company, can you?
No. Well, I mean, I guess in theory you can, but
I think in a much bigger business where the systems are intact, Facebook can do that. They can bring in a senior level position who's had senior level experience in other multinational companies.
Right.
But we're not talking about those, right? We're talking 50 million and less, 100 million and less, 1,000 employees or less. What we would term a small or medium business.
Mm-hmm.
You can't pull somebody off the street and stick them into that situation.
No.
You've got to develop that talent and that understanding of the culture and that understanding of the systems. And that's what you've done. I mean,
what I find interesting is what becomes difficult is, as we've created that here, when I go home at night, there are days when I feel less productive. Because I have others that have taken on a lot of the workload that I had. So now I am more focused on the people and that, and kind of going back to the first time that we talked, and you were talking about that 20 minutes, that first 20 minutes when you're going through the gauntlet, or what, that's kind of what I do now. And so there are moments where it's like, wow, I just don't feel that productive. And then you come in, you look at the numbers the next day and it's like, wow, we just exceeded expectations. Where's it coming? Where's all this stuff coming from? Well, it's now working on the company with what we're doing and leading this organization to where we're all now trying to get to, because everybody, my people want to take this farther than I wanted to take it at this point. And it gets fun, that's for sure.
But it is a mindset shift or a lens shift.
It is absolutely a change,
right?
In the way.
So when you start looking at it through that leadership lens, you go, you go home at night on that same day and you go, wow, that was a productive day. I think I had conversations with 16 employees.
Right. Yep.
And when you're looking at it through the leadership lens, not the productivity lens, right? Not the producer lens. On the producer lens, you're like, and I'm sure you were here 10 years ago, right? We've all been there. We're like, God bless America. I don't think I accomplished one thing today. I was busy all day.
Yep.
I was, but I came in and such asked me for 5 minutes. That turned into 45 minutes. And then I got 3 phone calls, and then I got this, and I had a customer that I talked to. And you come home and you're like, I don't think I accomplished anything today. But if you put the leadership lens on, you go, wow, that was a productive day.
A great day.
Yeah.
And I think
it is a shift.
Yeah. And that kind of brings us full circle to the very beginning. And you said, why did we want to even start talking about lenses and looking at the things that way? I really feel very strongly it's as I started to understand the different lenses and the differences within those lenses, that's when my goals were, I was attaining everything that I'd ever tried to
Yeah.
attain. And I wish I would have done this 20 years ago.
Sure. But
Because
you
there
know,
was a time when you're building a company, you want it to be all about you, right? I mean, you want it to be, this is good. This is the way the client experience is going to be. This is the way my employees are going to act. This is,
Yeah.
I'm going to go out and I'm going to market and I'm going to bring in work and then I'm going to make sure that these guys, whatever, you want it to be all about you. And what I've learned over time is that is actually a hindrance that most business owners don't realize soon enough. And,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll come back to the lens conversation, but quick, easy example, right? I mean, 15 years ago when, which I guess they still kind of rule the planet, right? Google and Amazon, I mean, Google and Apple.
right.
We knew who the CEO was at Apple. It wasn't a household name who was at Google, but look, Google's got their hands in everything, don't they?
Oh,
They grew a company that's, crazy where it's grown because it was about decentralized leadership.
right.
It wasn't about who the CEO was. It was about, they famously have that whole thing that, you get 20% of your time has to be spent on something that's not in your arena that you're passionate about.
Right.
And it's led to all kinds of innovation there.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's a giant company. But back to the lens thing, I'll tell you what I like about the lens process or thought process with it, doing what I do, is it's not about your strengths and your weaknesses. It's not about your deficits. It's about whether you're looking at it through the right lens. And it's as simple as going, oh, I was looking at my day through the productivity lens. Let me take that off and put on the leadership lens. Well, as a leader, I had a conversation with 8 different employees who walked out of my room feeling better about themselves as a result of it. I had an opportunity to talk to a disgruntled customer who left that phone call and said, you know what, I'm not so disgruntled anymore. And I had 2 conversations with customers who are raving fans, and now they're just happy they tickled pink. They got to talk to to one of the Tuckers at Tuckers.
Right.
And I had a corrective action meeting with an employee who I wasn't sure how it was going to go, but when they left, they were energized and ready to kind of do better. Well, if I put on my leadership lens, wow, that was about as good a day as I was ever going to have.
Right.
My productivity lens, I didn't write the reports I was supposed to write. I didn't pull off the P&L. I didn't take my time to go and review my financials or, develop the business plan for next year or review the org chart like I had on my list for the list of things you went into the stuff you were going to do that day. So it's not a deficit or an either or, it's just what lens you're looking at through. And it's possible that you can look at it and go, well, productivity wise, I didn't accomplish all my tasks today. As a leader though, in the leadership lens, wow, that was a great day.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's both. It's
Yep.
not either or.
Right.
And you can look at it through a different lens rather than feeling bad about somehow you failed or you didn't do what you were supposed to do or whatever.
Well, I think whether it's, and I don't remember if we've talked about this yet, but I think manager is kind of a bad moniker for a job title because really
Sure.
you want leadership in that role. And if I think we talked about it some, you manage the outcomes, but you lead people. So if
Right,
you're
you
really
manage
a manager,
tasks, you lead people.
Yeah, you got to be a leader. And too many of us, because I did it for way too long, every situation that you have to go attack as a boss or a CEO or whatever it might be, I today try to think about that meeting before I go to that meeting, meaning, what role am I playing today, right? Am I here to let somebody know that they screwed up? Am I here to take somebody to another level? Do I have to, when you're a coach, there were times when, I would go at the best player, who maybe wasn't giving me the effort in practice,
Right.
because she didn't need to give me the effort because she was our best player. Well, that's the exact opposite of what you need or want. So sometimes you have to go after people. But when I step into any situation today, I'm thinking about, what is the role that I'm in right now? Am I going in there because there's a cash flow question? This is something that we're doing from, a cost of goods, whatever it might be. We have to talk margins on jobs, whatever it might be. Or is today that time when, This is that leadership side. And then you get to better outcomes because I think about outcomes before I go in. So I know what lens I'm looking at. And
Sure. And you know, my favorite question to ask people is, all right, so you're going to go to this meeting. In an hour, you're going to come out of that meeting. What's wild success look like?
great way of looking at it.
And if you know what wild success looks like, then you can adapt your strategy or your lens or whatever it is. Because, I mean, I could paint you the same picture. So somebody made the mistake and they come in, and you know, you had the precursory conversation, and today's the meeting to kind of dissect it. Excuse me. And that person knows they screwed up and they feel bad about it. Well, wild success looks very different than if that person is walking in going, I don't know what you're worried about. It's fine.
Right.
Well, wild success in one case is almost building that person up going, dude, look, did you do this with the best of intentions? Yep. Did you follow our values? Are you living your mission? Yep. Okay, great. I'm going to pat you up, make you feel good about, we have a culture here where as long as you're making that effort to live the values, to live the mission, to go and create the customer experience that we're trying to create, then you're good, right? And I want you to feel comfortable failing and be honest with me, and we'll figure it out and we'll patch it up and we'll go have a conversation with the customer and life's good.
Yeah.
But if you don't even tie your behavior back to the mission or the values, and you don't even know that there was a problem, well, then wild success looks very different going into that meeting.
Yeah, there was a real life thing I had. It was probably 15 years ago. We did a system for a client that the unit that we installed was DOA. So it was at the bad unit. And it happened to be during a time where they were in a condo, and it happened to be during a time where I think the temperatures outside were upper 90s, high humidity.
Yeah.
And they really didn't have the ability to open windows and all of that. They were nice enough, but we put the unit in. It was inoperable. We had to go get another unit. It had to be shipped in. And in that moment, I went to talk to the homeowners, and they were an elderly couple. And I went to talk to them, and when I walked in, that the heat in that condo hit me like a brick wall.
On a brick,
They could not stay there. So I put them up in a hotel. I made a decision. It's like, look, this wasn't their issue. It's not really our issue either, but the right thing to do.
Yep.
So I removed them out of the place. I put them in a hotel. We did the job the next day and whatever. The reality was none of my employees could have made that same decision that I made.
Right.
I would have been, and what do you mean you're putting them up in a hotel? You know?
Right.
So that was that time when you flip that leadership lens, and I let our employees, you do whatever you think is right.
Yep.
And then
be willing to talk about it.
We might have a discussion so that I understand where they came from, but do what you think is right.
Yep.
And
that is a great example, Ken, of at 5 million or 8 million, you can go out, they can call you and you can go out to that customer.
Yeah.
At 100 million, when you scale to that level, you can't go see every customer.
No.
And the only way you're going to break through your lid is if you empower people, somebody, maybe not everybody, but somebody through, or several somebodies throughout your organization who could make that exact, because that was the right decision.
Absolutely.
It met the mission test. It met your values test. Who else can make that decision?
Yeah.
It's actually a really good template for having the conversation about who in our organization could make this decision. What's that level that we would allow that to happen? That's part of how you scale and blow through the lids like you were talking about earlier.
Yeah. And I think that's when, and that's when everything changed from, as soon as I changed that's when everything changed with, you know, whether you want to get into 5-star reviews and you want to do whatever. That made us more money because I made that decision because of how it affected every other employee that we have going forward. Than anything. I mean, that was a loss. We lost money on that job. I have to do the install twice. You know, the equipment was free the second day, but I lost a day of revenue.
Install.
I lost a day the next day of doing it again because I, took away from another job I could have done, so all those things. But that one scenario made me more money than anything I've ever done. Or one of them.
Right. Well, because and think about it. So now your customers feel more valued, but more importantly, and it's funny because most people in your position, and maybe you, if you were maybe you had the same thing. If I give people, my employees, that power, it's easy for them to just, sure, let me put you up in a hotel,
Right.
and it'll cost me a lot of money. And what you probably found was the exact opposite, which was your employees took that level of trust very seriously. And in some ways, they might have not made that decision when they should have, because they wanted to make sure they didn't do anything egregious.
Yes.
And it's fascinating, but your employees felt valued and trusted, right?
Yep.
And now they're more motivated.
And I think you brought that to me as well. It was
Yep.
set up the mission, vision. You set those things up.
Yeah.
And because the mistake early on was my employees were thinking, what would Ken do?
Yes.
They weren't living the corporate culture, the corporate value, because I don't really want them to be me. I want them to be the best of them.
Yep.
What would your expectation be in this situation if you're on the other end of it? Just make it right.
And it's kind of simple, really. Once you create that mission, and it's got to be usable, and the values, and I like 3, some people do 4 or 5, but my point is that if my mission is to XYZ and my values are A, B, and C, it becomes really simple to when something happens that didn't work out the way you planned. It becomes really simple when you get together and go, okay, so tell me how you're trying to live the mission. Tell me how you're trying to do it through our values.
Right.
And as long as your employee goes, well, what I was thinking was, and because our mission is this, I thought we should try it this way. And, based on this value, I really wanted to, do this. And if you look at them and you go, well, awesome. Keep it up, buddy. This one didn't work out, but maybe it will next time.
Absolutely.
And conversely, when you have a situation where it goes perfect and you go to them and you say, hey, so tell me how you were trying to do this. This is great that it worked out. Tell me how you're trying to live our mission and play by our values. And if they look at you and go, I don't know, I just did what I thought was. Now we do have a problem, because that one happened to work out.
Yeah.
But the next time there's a questionable situation, they're just going to use their instincts. They're not going to be living the mission and values, and you're not going to be able to defend it to your customer or to the rest of your employees.
Right.
And it's such a powerful tool. It really is.
And I think the mistake, though, is, and the reason that this lens thing works so well, is people think that you have to be in my position to be able, as an organization, you have to be successful to be able to live that way. And that's the misnomer.
Yes.
If you live that way from the beginning, the success comes a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Right. Don't, so part of doing this is to, let's help others not make the same mistakes that we make. And too many of us need to go through it anyway. It's,
of course,
just take little snippets from this and I think that's where,
let's see where it goes.
Yeah. In any form, if somebody can take something from it and it helps them reach whatever pinnacle they're trying to reach for themselves, but you got to look at life a little bit different on all fronts.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, KT, I think we're probably going to run out of time here. So let's, seems like a good ending point. Always good chatting with you.
You too. And it's, do it again very soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll do it again in 2 weeks.
Let's look at having some guests and let's see what we can do.
Yeah, and maybe we'll pull some book snippets out, because I've been reading some really interesting books lately. It'd be interesting to kind of dissect a little bit.
That'd be great.
So we'll see what we feel like in 2 weeks.
You got it. Nice seeing
you,
buddy.
Take it easy now.
All right, man.
All right.